guy that's lived close to him that he hasn't harassed that lived in that house?
See, Derek read it.
Yes,
Yeah.
from
We are
From-
alive.
you?
Well, I was.
You were part of Peachtree?
How much you know about Peachtree?
I knew enough to know that they own it, that's all.
Okay, guys,
Peachtree
it's around
was,
2 o'clock, and we have a lot to cover, so I'm gonna start. We don't have Scott
Northwestern
Bradley
District.
here. We'll start
So
with
what
Dick.
they did was,
Can you hear me?
it was Dick Jackson
Hello?
and Scrabble.
Okay.
Holler out, call the order.
Hello? We gotta start, because we have a lot to cover. Thanks, sorry to interrupt.
All right.
Okay,
After
it's
the
2
meeting.
o'clock, call to order. Let's do the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance
to the flag
of the
United States of America
and
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, roll call. Laurel?
Mr. Christensen,
Present.
Mr. Frericks,
Present.
Mr. Robbins,
There.
and Mr. Smith,
Present.
all present.
And Scott Bradley's supposed to come. I hope he does. He's got some issues to talk about.
Okay.
Okay, the agenda everyone's received. Any additions, changes to the agenda, criticism, comments?
It's a beautiful agenda.
Thank you. Hearing none,
Move to accept the agenda as presented.
second please.
Second.
Thank you. All agree? Raise your hand when you do
All
that.
right.
Everybody agrees. Thank you. Public comment?
The number to call in for public comment is 231-256-8109.
Can you grab one of those for me too? Rick, can you make? Okay, thanks.
45 seconds or so. That's for the next meeting.
That's for that.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think we have any papers.
Okay. Hearing no public comment, we'll move on to the action items. Number 1 is approval of the February 2nd meeting minutes from our committee. Everyone's reviewed those, I hope.
Move to accept, move to approve the minutes from February 2nd.
Second. Thank you. All in favor? Hand raised. Aye.
Aye.
Scott, welcome. Thank you. Okay, number 2. It's the log, and trail debris removal. Anybody's intent, my understanding, Laurel will correct me if I'm wrong, any intention to do this or to apply for this is due by the 23rd of March. And the closing date you have to submit is by April 8th.
Correct.
Correct. So if we don't hear any intent, this is my question, by the 23rd, can we open the bids that are there before the 8th? We cannot. Okay, so we have to wait till the 8th so we know the cost of this.
You have to kind of understand that some people don't read it properly and they could still submit a bid by the 8th
Yeah,
and we don't open until.
okay, we don't understand. Okay. Now, Scott submitted this, had this submitted in 4 parts. And maybe he can comment on that. So if we do decide to go through with this, which we're going to do, I'm sure, can we decide how many sections we're going to do? Is that correct, Scott?
I didn't hear you.
Oh, we're talking about the trail debris removal, the log and everything.
Yeah.
Item number 2. You said there's 3 or 4 parts to this. Say there's a financial thing involved, and we don't have the money to do all 4. Can we do 1 or 2? Is that not appropriate?
Well,
or is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, we want to do them all, but we don't know what the costs are, so.
Well, cost-wise, I'm gonna digress for a minute. I looked at the 2021 budget, there's about less than $80,000 available for the whole Park and Rec Committee to work with, all 3 parks. Have that money, and capital output is about like 45,000, another 4,000 for smaller elements, and then there's 30,000 for repair and maintenance. And other than that, there's no money in the budget for us to work with to improve the parks. 80,000 sounds, or a little less than 80,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it's, when you look at the parks and all that needs to be done, it's not. So just to keep in mind,
Is that 30,000, does that mean just for the trail for repair and maintenance, or is that for everything in the park there?
the 30,000 for repair and maintenance of everything in the park.
Everything?
Yeah,
Everything
Okay.
in all the parks.
all three parks.
Okay, thanks, that's good to know.
Not even the three parks, but all the other county ones too. maybe.
No,
No,
just the three.
just the three parks, okay, well, that's good to some extent. Anyway, keep that in mind when you, when we talk about number 9, prioritizing recommendations, because we don't have to do all of it, but it seems probably appropriate to do it all once the equipment's there and everything, to take care of stuff like that. To bring them back in is gonna cost more money in the long run, probably. There's under 2A, there's a request for volunteer at the Glen Lake Community Schools, 8th grade. There's a letter from a Pat Hobbins. I don't know if that's the guy whose trail's named after him.
Steve, did you talk with him at all?
I did not call him. I thought it was self-explanatory.
Could I ask a question related to that? I did go up the trail that I think is the trail that's referred to here. And I went quite a ways up to kind of a peak of a hill where there's a large open area. And one of the disc baskets, is that the trail, that just continues on meandering around?
It's a loop trail. If you get
Yeah,
on
it's
it,
part
it's
of it.
very well defined.
Okay.
Scott can help you with that, or we can go out
Right.
there. and-
The reason I ask is at that point, there was nothing in the trail. Further on, is there a lot of debris on the trail, or, Scott, do you know?
It's,
I guess the
I can
question,
answer
I'm not
that.
sure
question
you were on
would
the
be
trail if
where-
You didn't see debris.
Okay, because it was more of a road.
That's it. If you look to the side, there's piles of crap everywhere.
Oh, yeah, okay, so that's not in reference to what's on the trail, but what's on the sides.
Trail is open. It's in the right
Ah,
of the woods
okay.
where the disc golf players go, and they're just getting in the way and stuff.
Okay.
The law gets in the way of the disc, excuse me.
All right.
there's a perimeter trail also that's in the works. That when the logging was done, the logging company went through and snipped the trees in a perimeter trail fashion, and there was snow on the ground, so they snipped them, and there's this much of a stump on all of the snips. And that trail needs to be ground down so
Wow.
that Scott can take his machinery and zip around the whole
Sure.
thing, the perimeter, to take a look at it and see what's going on. So that's gonna be a big part of what the cost is gonna be.
So, okay, all right, thanks, okay.
So we're focused on 2A right now. This is about these 8th grade kids coming to help with the cleanup. I'm gonna ask Scott, how do you feel about that, Scott?
No.
You have to say more
What
than that.
what are they gonna
please.
do with the brush? How are they gonna move it? Bunch of 5th graders? I mean, how much can they clean up? I got set in the hospital trying to do it myself. You wanna have 5th graders out there doing it?
It's 8th grade, but I agree with, even if it's adults,
Fifth,
if they're not-
whatever.
that they gotta be big.
Yeah.
So this,
There's other stuff we could have them do, but no, we're gonna have it professionally done and,
Any other comments from the committee?
so there's really no cleanup that they could do at Miles, these
No.
8th graders, right?
no,
There's not a set thing that would fit for this group.
right.
Michael?
What do you think about painting? For them,
Um,
because, I wouldn't mind going out there and guiding them.
No, let's not get off the subject. We're on 2A, just.
That's what he's
Okay.
talking about,
No, no.
What are you
a
talking about?
project for them to volunteer as.
Are you talking about painting?
Yeah,
That was the
I mean,
question.
it's a project they could do and they're
Well, no, I'm
capable.
gonna take us back to number 2A. This is, he wants to help, he wants to assist with the cleanup of Miles.
Yeah,
I
no
thought it was
way,
just
somebody get hurt.
a logging, maybe I'm mistaken about that. We didn't talk to this fellow, maybe they want
So
to do
you-
more than this.
So should I call and let them know that it doesn't fit?
No, actually, I'm reading this letter now, it's to assist in the cleanup And I thought the cleanup was the logging cleanup. I'm mistaken, maybe.
That is-
Maybe it's any cleanup.
That's what
Any
he's
cleanup.
talking about.
No, yeah,
Then so we can pay for that. Oh, yeah, we'll find something for him to do. But
Scott
it's
says
listed
there's,
as a
Scott,
logging thing, so I
Scott-
was
yeah,
thinking,
Scott says there's nothing for them at Myles at this point in time.
yeah.
It's really not. I don't know what they could do.
No. The only way they could help with the logging is if somebody supervised very closely and had them do a token cleanup of the twigs and that, and make them feel good thing. But the logging,
Just open
I
up
agree,
a
it's
big
too
can of worms.
insensitive, too machinery, et cetera.
I work in the woods a lot. I skid logs, pull logs, lift logs, cut trees, and I just, unless somebody has experience working, I don't care if it's brush or what it is, it's a dangerous situation.
So we're in agreement that the logging thing is not to involve the kids, right? And maybe down the pipe, something else.
Right.
So that'll be our recommendation.
So I-
to the committee at 3.
So is it okay if I call Pat and let him know that we have nothing for him at this point
Probably
in
so,
time?
don't we have
Well,
to take this to the committee?
But before you do that, if you wouldn't mind holding off on that, because I think, I wouldn't mind being out there supervising painting for those guys, and I'd be painting too. There's lots of painting to be done.
Well, everything in this category
We're
goes.
trying to
through
hire
Scott.
somebody to help me with all this stuff, and I'll be having more time. So that's the next thing.
Okay,
Let's just,
okay, so you don't want to use them for painting?
no, I don't want a bunch of kids throwing paint all over. Have
Okay.
you ever seen a kid paint?
Okay.
Basically,
I have my grandkids, and they help, but I'm supervising,
Okay.
Yeah, well, I have to supervise you though, so it's so much work to have volunteers out there.
Well, we're good with this.
It's more work for me to watch something than
Yeah,
to do
yeah.
it myself, honestly.
I'm gonna move on
Okay.
to number 3 in a minute here, because we got a timeline here we gotta get through.
I'll
I'm
call
gonna
him.
say to the commission at 3 o'clock, if this comes up, which it will probably, is that at this point in time, we have nothing to offer the 8th grade students. Down the line, we'll consider it, period. Does that work? Or some
And
other
I-
project,
and
it's
I
not
can-
gonna be logs
And
anyhow.
I'll call him, let him know.
Sure,
Okay.
yeah, but wait till we present it to this commission, so we're sequencing.
Maybe just say not at this time, there might be
say
something in the
different.
future.
Right.
Thank them for,
You bet. And then, did you hear what Scott just said?
No,
just tell them not at this time, but possibly in the future,
Yes,
thank them
exactly.
for their generous offer.
Right.
exactly, and thank
Good
you
wording.
for their offer, absolutely. But this was sent to the whole commission, and we're just a committee, so we have to take it back to the commission before you call them, Steve, I think.
No, if you're not making a formal recommendation, you don't have to bring it to the commission.
Oh, okay, good, then you can just call them and tell them. Is this, so in other words, this letter is to our committee. and
Right.
Okay, good. Thank you, Steve, for doing this. Okay, the next item is number 3, please, and the storage shack discussion. And we've all looked at that at various times, everybody's familiar with it. And the question is whether we're gonna renovate it or move it, or what we're gonna do about it. And Michael's gonna lead the discussion to start with on what we should do, shouldn't do, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, can you guys hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Just make sure that if people are watching, you're speaking into the microphones.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Hi, my name is Michael Smith. I'm new to the board, was asked to help out, and I'm happy to be here to do so. I went to the park with Don, and we took a look at things, and Scott was there too. And there's a grub shack, it was called, and it's in pretty rough shape. The roof is in dire need of attention. It has been in such a bad condition for quite a while that there is leaking to the inside of the building, not for a long enough period that created mold, or perhaps there's enough aeration there, it dries, but because there's no smell of mold or mildew inside the building. The outside trim related to the roof line, it is falling off and needs some attention there. The siding, and they're sagging on the one end of the roof because of poor support. It was just plywood sticking out originally with no support underneath it. The siding is in desperate need of attention. There's a couple of spots where a woodpecker has done some nice damage. And I noticed Scott had an owl in his building to ward off woodpeckers, so maybe we could put that owl out there. But
Doesn't work.
it doesn't work, he says. But anyway, there's holes in the building and those need to be repaired. Or those panels could be removed. It's 4x8 sheets of 2x11. And on the north side of the building, the skirting needs to be replaced because and of course, it's not even all there. And underneath the building, there's a lot of eyesore, a bunch of debris has been thrown underneath the building for whatever reason, many years ago. Inside the building, you can see no water damage, but you can see signs of water having entered from the roof, and so staining the insulation. It houses various things for the park, and some play equipment, and the park water facility system portions are inside the building also. The inside doesn't seem to have any great deal of problem. The floor is intact. So related to trying to save the building, it would be a cost of certainly less than $10,000, and that is taking care of all of the details, such as moving earth away from the south side of the building, because the earth has washed up against one small area of the building, creating a potential problem there of rot. At this point, the building is not rotted there, I did check it, but that could be dug away and a little bit of drain tile stone put in there along with a line to drain it away from the building. The underside of the building is structurally sound. I went out there with a gentleman that I trust and I worked with a lot, and he said that the entire building could be repaired for less than $10,000. He gave me a better price, but there was talk about a bid, and so I don't want to state that publicly, what the price would be. And that would include new roof and support for the roof and replacing the siding pieces that are there, putting skirting on the building. And my suggestion was that I would paint the building, but what he would do is prep the building for painting completely so it is stable. So that is the idea of if we were to refurbish the building. Then the second choice was to knock the building down and rebuild. We have, from what I just heard, approximately $30,000 to invest. And so the cost of knocking it down and rebuilding a building of this size, which is approximately 16 by 32 plus, it would be $30,000+. That would be minimum, because you have to knock down the building and then completely rebuild the building. And that's addressing the plumbing and the electrical and all those type things. Whereas for $10,000, which is, if we want to be fiscally responsible, I think we can make things look very nice for less than $10,000.
We looked at a plan from years ago that they developed. If it was going to be a knockdown, an option 1 and an option 2. Option 1 is to put a pole barn up, a metal pole barn that was 16 by 32. The other option was just to put a slab down. They both considered a slab. I put a slab down, just have a small little building, if you will, very small, to contain the electrical and water supply and whatnot. That would not cost $30,000. I don't think, right?
I got a price on a 16 by 32 just for material. Just today, it was $5,600.
Just the material.
Just,
Yeah, and we have to.
but I'd like to say, you know, you can keep putting lipstick on a pig and it's still a pig. That's mine.
I think we can make that pig look pretty good with a little bit of work. That 56 though, that doesn't include tear down and removal of everything.
Just what I said.
Yeah.
Say that again, Scott, tear down was what?
No, just materials. the bid, he got bid for a shed, and it was just
It's just the
materials.
material list, that's all.
Oh, just the material to,
It was 56.
Just materials,
would
you
be,
know.
that's the
And that's
50,
no doors, no windows.
the 5,600 you mentioned is for what? I'm sorry.
It was a whole barn.
With no windows, no doors.
Okay. Well, it's gotta have one door. 5,600.
I didn't design it. I
Or
was just
16 by
trying to
32.
figure.
Metal one? Okay. Well, that's a lot different from your 30,000, like, what is the discrepancy there?
And I would like to say this has been seesawing back and forth for as long as I've been here, and I know at least 10 years before me. So tear it down, fix it up, tear it down, fix it up. The last bid we got on a roof was $24,000. One person bid on it,
And that was for what, of the 24?
putting a roof on it.
Okay, well, I have a gentleman who will make it all pretty except for the paint, and I'll do the painting,
Still has to bid on it.
and it'll be less than 10 grand, and it would look new.
Well, one caution is if we renovate this building at all, it has to follow code, and when you start following code, it becomes more costly, number one. But before we even go there, remember that the important thing is what, and this is for Steve and Scott mainly, because the three of us are newer to the park. What do we really want in that spot? What do we want to wind up with in that spot? Do we want a slab with picnic tables on it? Do we want a slab with porta potties on it? Do we want a slab with that little building on it that should contain the electrical and water, and the rest be a slab for whatever we decide? I mean, what does the park need on that particular spot? I think personally that it needs, it's an entrance to the park, and it needs a kiosk there with some good signage that here's the trails, here's where you go to do this, here's where the disc golf starts, here's all sorts of interesting things like that. That could be on the face of a small building that contains the electrical and the water. And the rest of that slab, if we put a slab on there, I don't know what to do with. So maybe we don't even need a slab there. Maybe we just need that little building with a kiosk there. But I defer to Scott and Steve because they know the parks better than we do.
Well, you know, Scott's comment from last month about he wouldn't want to sit there at a picnic table right next to the porta potties. And I thought, you know, in retrospect, that was an excellent comment. So I think if we're thinking a slab and a roof over, like we've got on the west side, on the east side, where would we put it? We wouldn't put it there. We'd put it somewhere else, right, Scott?
Well, the way I envision it would be to have that building with a lean-to on it, just big enough for the porta potties. Get rid of that porta potty shelter that's there now. And then at some point in time, put a pavilion up on the hill where, you know, grandma and grandpa can watch their kids play soccer.
So the
Porta
picnic
potties
tables,
are all contained in a nice neat building. There's a kiosk there, it all looks nice and pretty, you know, not just this old crappy building with a coat of paint on it. You know, if you can't sign it at least, you know, I don't know, I'm not buying the 10 grand figure either.
well,
Look, I did have somebody out there that,
I know,
that's a professional.
No, but the point is, guys, what do we use the building for? So we paint it, we renovate it, it's
well,
there. Do
that-
we want it? Do we?
that building, the main use for that building, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, the main use for that building is a storage area for the soccer people.
That's correct, it's got a bunch of stuff in there, and also, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a water system in there.
So all of the plumbing and water and all of the electrical for the whole park are in one end of that building, and no matter what we do, we're gonna have to end up with a proper enclosure for that.
And that is option 2.
And so if we leave, you know, from what Scott's saying, this has been talked about for years. And so, you know, decades, okay, I know it may not be the perfect solution, but I know I've done a lot of remodeling is I have multiple rentals, and it is, I think it's possible to make that look good. We have scallops on the trim, and that trim would look pretty, and according to the guy I had out there, he'd be doing it. Everything that I'm saying is a reality. Okay, it's not gonna be inflated, it'd be less.
Just
That's
to
fine.
comment on this, it's a storage facility for the soccer balls. They have their own little storage thing that was built for them, and they don't use it. We can put all that in the one they don't use and say, hey, this is where your storage is for your soccer balls. So use as a soccer storage unit is not necessary, right?
We as a county are desperately out of storage areas,
Desperate what?
out of storage. We have all our equipment outside. People store stuff all over the place. We need storage space.
Okay, so that speaks to leaving it there and not having an open area, and,
But nice, clean.
absolutely, it would be.
I know, whatever. I'm not arguing with you.
But well, the rhetoric is good, that we talk about this, so we come to the right conclusion. Steve?
We had just gone to the area of code. So the gentleman you had there,
He's very capable.
he'll be going through the code office with all he's doing.
If you just put it according to what we talked about, we would not be changing anything that would require code. It'd be sprucing up, like he said, taking we're not trying to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. What we're trying to do is to make it look nice, okay, and very functional and last for another 30 years.
You talked
And
about,
so there would be no code involved for painting and putting a roof on it.
you talked about support for the roof.
Yeah, and that's simply, there's, nobody ever put a 2x4 on the fascia end of it.
Mhm.
Okay, and so all that would need to be done is to support the plywood that was never supported. It just has a thin little piece of wood sticking out on just the fascia, literally, is what's supporting it, rather than a 2x4 behind the fascia.
Can you have this person touch base with the code office and let them know what we're thinking? And if there's any hoops that he would have to jump through if he were to do something like this?
I would definitely do that. And we did speak of code, and he said, if you do this and this and this, you'd have to have somebody come out and look at the codes and so and so. But according to just doing the roof and the painting and sprucing it up, there would be no code necessary for making the changes, because there's not really any changes. It's just reinforcing the support of the existing building. And we're not changing anything as far as the building itself, the structure. We're simply reinforcing what is there and making it new.
So.
Just let me finish if I may.
Sure.
The other aspect to that is that the electrical in there is pretty rough.
We didn't address electrical at all.
Correct, but if we're gonna make this a building we're gonna keep and use, we're gonna have to at least have a partition in there to keep everybody out of that area. And then that area really does need to get looked at. Have him look at that, and if he's gotta bring an electrician in to look at it, and, we're gonna make it right. We've gotta make that electrical right, we've gotta make that partition right. It's gotta be correct and right, and if there's any hoops to jump through with any of that, it's gotta go through the code office. So we're not just gonna make it look nice, we're gonna make it right.
Okay, so we didn't address any wall on the inside, but
We don't want anybody near that electrical.
Okay, and I understand that, and I agree with that. And so if the idea is to block that off, it seems pretty simple.
Yeah, it's a wall and a door.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt because we're not going to this committee is not going to come to consensus on this today. So we'll talk about this next month, and we'll get more information, we'll work on it, everybody else will work on it, Scott.
I can do that, and then as part of that,
Okay.
can we make, a plan to move forward? Because from what I'm hearing, this has been talked about for years and nothing's been.
What's gonna happen is, the bids are gonna come in.
Okay.
And this project that we have no idea what's gonna cost. And it's a big project, it's gonna cost 30 grand or more or less or whatever. So, not this one, it's the trash and the stumps, and
That's huge.
that's huge. That's gonna be a big bite out of the budget. And this committee and Myles Kimmerly, I'm sorry, Veronica Valley, both have a few things going. And at that point in time, you'll have more information on how to make this thing right, and we'll have a dollar. And then we'll kind of know what the dollars are that are left. And we can arm wrestle over them. Scott will kibitz a bit. You know, we're gonna draw the line next month, following month, to the end of the year and see if we can get it all spent in a logical way. And ideally, this would be part of it. I don't know. But we can make the recommendation to the commission, Parks and Rec Commission, and it's this much, and we're ready to go. Got a guy, we go out to bids, da-da-da-da.
But this committee hasn't decided whether we want to renovate or tear it down yet.
Right.
I haven't.
He asked where we're going,
So we want to really, we want more information, I'll talk about it, I'll put it first thing on the agenda next month, okay? I'd like to move on, because I'd like to cover everything, I apologize for being a little rushed, but we got a timeline here. The next thing I want to talk about, because it's important to talk about all these things, because I want you to rank order them. So we talk about them in a significant order, and if we spend 2 hours, like Steve says, any one of these items we could spend 2 hours on, and we just can't do that today. So number 4 is the water damage in the garage and the potential mold problem there. And is it snow blowing in causing it? Is it condensation from the heater being on? Is it a leak in the roof? Well, we don't know. And Scott, do you have some comments about that? Did you find out who the roof was replaced, you had told me some years ago? Do we know who did that, and can we contact them?
No, it was over 10 years ago.
10 years ago, too long ago. You know, should the committee think how should we explore that? Should we have somebody that knows metal roofs come out and look at that? What's the thoughts of the group?
I don't know, he seems to know everything, so let him do it.
Well, let's be helpful here. With your comments, please. Okay, I hear nothing, so we're gonna let this one go right now. And I'm gonna go on to number 5, the dog park. And Rick, you're on for this.
2 weekends ago, I threw it on Facebook, you guys talked about the dog park.
You gotta speak into the microphone, please.
That's right. After the last meeting, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, on a Saturday, you guys talked about the dog park, so I threw it on Facebook just to see if there was any interest out there, being that it's up in the middle of the county. And we got probably over 50 responses, and with the exception of 2, they were nothing but positive, so. That's where we're at on that, I guess. It's gonna come down to funds, and probably the main thing is location in the park, or where can we put it? I think the original idea back in, by the horse barn in the woods, I would not recommend that one, kind of out of the way, and I guess I'm looking at it for safety reasons for, people walking their dogs at night, single women walking their dog or whatever, I don't feel safe. I think park, if there's gonna be a dog park there, it's gotta be closer to the main park, somewhere in that area. I did also check with the city as far as liability. They have no special policy for their dog park there. It's covered underneath the standard insurance policy for the city, so they've had no complaints. I know what we got, like 1.3 acres, I think you said, Scott? Yeah, so.
Drawn is 1.2.
Yeah. So,
1.3 acres is way off in the woods on the north side.
yeah,
And that is maybe not the best place because of safety issues for females and whatnot. And anyone would. But
Steve, that was on the drawing that Leah did.
I'm sorry, Scott, I can't hear you.
Leah did a drawing, design of the park, and that was drawn like we had it
Yeah, it was put there.
quite a few years ago.
Yeah, it was put there because dog park was number whatever on the list for the, when they went out to garner public comment, and that one came up fairly often, so the dog park got plugged in up there. Did the Traverse City have any, is there any special way that they organize the dog park, clean up after it? I mean, is there, well, how do they, did they talk about that at all?
No, but I know a little bit, you know, I was still working at the county when I put that dog park in. DPW's, yeah, it's part of their, it probably fall on your hands. I mean, I think they try to get I don't know, because I've never been there, but I think they try to get the participants to clean up after them. Now, whether they do, I don't know. It seems to be clean every time I go by there, so.
Can anybody use it, any dog? There's no check on licenses or anything like that,
No,
or rabies or anything?
no, I mean, it's, the only way you can do that is to have animal control show up and there's no way of,
Is there a limit to numbers or?
I don't know. I gotta have to come back and look at it. I mean, I've seen it full, but, you know, not overused still. You know, I think if we went with these, that's only probably, I would say that's probably about a third of an acre, that one. And I question, it'd be nice to have an acre, but I guess if we have the room, but, I think that, the city gets by on that smaller one. We may not need one as large as what we looked at.
Yeah, I think, what I've seen and heard about a little bit, is a lot of places will have a park that's split. There'll be big dogs and little dogs. And that's about all I know about it.
Rick? Oh,
Well, I just wanted to mention that depending on the scope or size of, because it's basically a fenced-in area, correct?
Yeah,
If you wanted to, if it's not that big, you could maybe utilize part of that fencing that separates from the property owner as one of the sides, if you have a portion of that, depending on, you know what I mean, however you configure it. That way you're only worrying about 3 walls.
So to cut the cost down a little bit.
And when it comes to, would you have to probably mow it? Or don't you think so? I don't know how that goes.
I would imagine it'd have to be mowed.
So make sure that there's a doorway that'll accommodate your mowing.
With 2 things, Rick, maybe you could do before our next meeting, we'll postpone any decision on this till then. But I think it's a great idea, number 1. But maybe we should check with the animal control people in Leelanau County and see what issues they've had with previous parks or anything, or the suggestions they might have for us. That'd be one thing. And then the second thing is to talk specifically with people where there is a dog park, and the couple that you know, and see what issues they've had, and, about mowing, about cleanup, things like that, and they come into problems in that. And once we have those two things addressed, I think it'd be easy to just make a recommendation that we do this, except for the location, and I'll comment on that, because I think, as I mentioned to you on the phone call, the one way back is too far away for people to feel comfortable maybe in the woods, back on the north side. And putting it on the corner of that north section, right at the roadway, the main road and the road going in, and that corner, I think, is a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea to bring it over where the soccer field and the golf ranges and that, because of other issues that we mentioned. That's just too congested over there, let's put it that way. Any other comments about the dog park? Okay. Next, let me charge on here. Trail signage, I'm just gonna talk about that for a second. What Veronica Valley's doing, I think we know, we've seen it from the commission meetings, and I think they're doing a good job, and we should just replicate our own. And we can't quite do that until we get an updated GIS mapping of our area. And if we're gonna put in a new trail and all that, we want to get that in before we put the signage up, to make sure it's up to date for years to come, at least a few years to come. Anything else on that? Okay, the paved walking trail, that's been on the 5-year plan as a top item for some time, and very popular apparently. And Steve's got a comment on that.
Well, I think I mentioned a little bit last time, but Mike didn't hear it, but, yeah, it's basically, was a top item when, we went for public input. And it actually was tossed back to this committee from the Parks and Rec Commission to determine how we could move forward on wrapping our hands around design cost and a ballpark so we could go out to bids if we wanted to. We didn't get any farther than that recommendation from Parks and Rec Commission to this committee. Basically, the person that put it together said you can do it one of two ways as far as prepping to get a bid. And you could split the bid apart into different sections, prep for the trail and then paving for the trail. The idea was to have it be an asphalt trail for walkers mainly. You could take and do cross sections in the representative areas. Maybe you'll end up with 4 cross sections, and then stake the trail, and that way a person could come and do bids. And they'd have the cross sections to look at for profile, and they could get an idea how much dirt they're going to have to move. The other way would be to have it be a bona fide design where an engineering firm would design it, and it would have sheets and all of the profiles and all of the cross sections in the formal design put together by a design company. So those are the 2 ways to get it set to go out to bids. And we didn't get a ballpark. I know Don had a ballpark, but you know, that's kind of where it fell into our lap. When we were talking with Gosling Zubek, who basically did the overlay on that one, you know, there's the dotted line, the red dotted line sits over the top of the original design.
What page is that on?
He was talking, Klaus Klinger was talking about different concepts as far as that trail goes. Instead of running it all the way over to the east side, we'd be going across the driving range, and then there's a neighbor on that side that has dogs and horses. So that's why the dotted line shortstop went up along the pines and then did a zigzag because of a baseball field. As it turns out, part of what he was talking about was that the baseball fields that are on the left page, there's 3 little fields, are the right size. It's for Little League there. We don't have to go for Pony League or Independent League. It's just the Little League. So where we were going as a committee, and maybe Parks and Rec Commission, with this plan was that the original plan got us to the door, but now we need to probably look more closely at the plan and modify it. And we got partway down that street, and then that's actually where we are now. And we have what's on page 28 and 29 of the plan with the walking trail just in dashed red lines. So we haven't revisited it. It's kind of just at the beginning stages. Obviously, it'd be a pretty pricey thing to do. It's something that would be a home run to have. You know, as the kids are doing this, that, and the other thing, grandma's walking the trail, a short one, a big one, it'd be a great addition to the park. It was a high desire by the public. And that's kind of where it sits right now, and that's all I know.
Related to the trail, what is the policy related to pets on the trail with you walking? Any rules at all, or is it just?
On a leash. At this park, we have several areas where you cannot have a dog.
Okay.
And
those areas are?
When you drive in, the rule board will say, dogs must be on a leash, you must pick up after them, and specific areas will be noticed as no dogs allowed.
Okay.
So the soccer field, the picnic table area. Scott, where else? Is that it?
Soccer field, picnic table, picnic area, the ball fields.
Also, yeah, okay.
So that's the way we handled it.
Okay.
Basically, all of our dog on leash rules have been isolated so that Wayne Kelchik, the dog control, the animal control person, can police those rules. That's how we put them on each park now. And this one we jockeyed around specifically for him so he can police the rule.
Sure.
So, you know, as it stands now, it's not an area that's excluded. It's an area that would be included. And it'd be a perfect place to take your dog and walk on a asphalt trail.
So if I can summarize it, it's a very popular item, desirable. It's been on the 5-year plan. And it's a high item for that. It's the #1 thing on the 5-year plan, I think. And it's a high ticket item, but it can be done in stages. We can lay the groundwork. We don't have to pave it right away. Is that right?
I would say so. You know, I mean, there's the clearing, could be #1, get it all cleared up and set.
Right.
Then laying down the base, which is like 3-4 inches of 22A, that'd be step 2. And then the final step would be the asphalt.
Yeah.
So that could be that way. I
So
don't
if
know.
we didn't have the money, we could do it in 3 stages, which is really good.
But then you said, I don't know, one of the meetings, 500,000?
Don had talked to Leelanau Treasure.
Asphalt thing, yeah, that's all.
But I mean, if we only get 30,000 a year,
It
we
might be
wouldn't
a
get that
high,
trail done in our lifetime.
yeah, it might be high, but I talked to some of the entire trails, and they gave me the square per, I forgot.
So much a
looked it
foot.
up, Per yard, or per however they measure it, and I equated it for a mile, and that's the number I came up with. That might be high, you think it's a little high, I think.
Well,
Is this trail open for hiking now as just hard packed earth, all of this?
no, it's nothing right now.
Okay.
You can walk that area, but there's nothing there other than slopey ground and grass. Some of it's mowed where Scott mows, some of it isn't mowed. Some of it's, you know, it hasn't really been formally placed and talked and walked. If it does come up to a very large number or a pretty large number, there's always the possibility that we could go through the Parks and Rec Commission to the County Board of Commissioners for a request for a large amount of money. It doesn't hurt to ask at that point in time. And then, you know, I don't know, go for the next step. And I don't know what that would be, donations or whatever, I don't know. You know, it's a big item.
It's gigantic.
Well, as a group, let's try to get a little more data and then hash this a little more. I want people to be aware of it today because we want to rank order this and say, where do we want to talk about? Maybe this is the thing we want to talk about next time we meet. We can't talk about everything all the time.
What do we got proposed there? How many miles is that trail?
When it was all the way around to the far east side, it was a mile. Right, Scott? It was a
Yeah,
mile.
that was the goal, was to keep it a mile so that you could walk a mile.
Perfect.
You know, each lap was a mile.
Make it a 1 mile, make it a 1
That's
mile.
good.
So-
Well, the one at the Civic Center in Fairfield, that's 1 mile. So
Oh, is it?
Yep, that's 1 mile.
Exactly, that's what we're going for, something like this.
Okay, all right, that.
Yeah, it's a hair under a mile, but it's pretty close.
One of the main points is the community thought it was a really good idea. They were behind
Yeah.
it, they liked it. I first looked at it, I thought, oh, just a mile, well, okay, yeah.
What about, as part of the steps, making sure that we have a clear passageway first, say, within a year, set goals, within a year, have a clear passageway. The following year, clear that passageway so that there's no stumps and of course,
It's open field.
it's open field, all of it, all the way around?
Yeah, pretty
Oh.
much, yeah.
They're not gonna
Unless
last-
we do-
well, I'll be
deviate.
dead by our house.
Okay, so there's no like junk in the way and
Tall grass.
grass, okay, I didn't realize, I was thinking we're going through forest at the back end and, okay.
I'm gonna interrupt, I got one more item and I wanna get through this.
Okay.
And we gotta stop pretty quick.
It's a good one to talk about. I think there's some way we could work on that.
It's a really good idea, and I think it's a great thing to have on our agenda. Tree plantings. Scott, can you help us a little bit on this? Scott has requested some tree plantings, which I think is, my wife.
Last year,
especially is great.
Our forester talked about applying for a grant for trees. I don't know whatever happened with that. She's nearing retirement, so I don't know what's gonna go on with any of that.
What's your name?
Cameron Ross.
Okay.
And, but anyway, we're losing trees left and right. Age, disease, none of them have been replaced. So we've talked about it in the past. I can't say what type of tree we should have. I don't think they should be maples. Put in place of maple. But-
Native species, kind of like. native
Absolutely,
species.
yeah.
Absolutely. She can help us with that. And maybe get some good pricing, but I don't think anybody's against that. That's a under $4,000 item that we can.
All those big maples along the tree, they're aging out quickly. I'm waiting for the road commission to probably cut these down.
We can formalize our recommendation, our committee can formalize a recommendation next time and send it to the commission next month. So I think we can do that. And I'd like to get that going. Because that'll be under $4,000. We just have to make sure we don't plant them where the trail is going to be. So we have to make sure we do the right thing. Okay. I sent you all an email today, I hope you got it, asking you to prioritize all the items that we've talked about today. And just on 1 through 7, there's 7 items. Because we just can't keep talking about the same thing all the time, because we have to focus on one thing and really digest it and come up with a concrete plan that we present to our commission. So that's the plan. If you give me just 1 through 7, grade them, and I'll tabulate everything, rank order them. So like your second choice will get as much attention maybe as the first choice. And relatively speaking, everybody thought your second choice was such a great one. That's what rank order is. So we'll do it that way. Any questions?
I couldn't hear you very good, but which one is the second choice?
It's your second choice, whatever you choose. If everybody really likes your second choice, it may jump up point-wise to the top of the list.
Yeah.
Just because it was your first choice, your second choice might jump up, and yeah, we'll see how that works out.
So,
So all you have to do is 1 through 7 on these 7 items, on the email that I sent you. They're
Yeah.
listed without a
Okay.
number, just sort of 1, 2, whichever one.
In order of your importance, how you feel.
Already.
okay, all right.
Okay.
He'll
Public
total
comment,
up.
please.
The number to call in for public comment is 256-8109. You wanna go right to board member comment, and that way we get someone.
Yeah, okay, well, board member comment, any board member comments?
Just one on in reference to the numbering, okay? It says dog park location. Is that all we're deciding on?
No,
Just-
I'm sorry, yeah, just the dog park. No,
Just-
actually, on the email
Just
I
the
sent you-
location and not any
No,
of
you have
the
to look at your
amenities?
email, because on the email I sent you, it just says dog park. look at the email and respond to the email, just reply on the email.
Okay.
Or print it out like Steve did and hand it to me like this,
All right.
either one. Okay, I have a board member comment, and that's, I apologize for going fast, it was too long for the 45 minutes, 50 minutes we have. And I'll try to do a little better next time. Okay.
Motion adjourned?
Okay, motion to adjourn, please.
Second, so moved. Oh,
Somebody has
second.
to make the motion.
Okay.
Michael made the motion,
I'll support.
Steve seconded it, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Thank you. We're adjourned. Thank you all.
Scott?